Hello everyone and happy Mother's Day, especially to my Black mamas out there. Today we're going to be talking to a few Black mamas and celebrating all things Black motherhood. Being a Black mother in America can be rough, like statistically rough. I'm talking 3 times more likely to not make it through childbirth than a white mother. But here's the thing, Black mamas are built different. They're fierce, they're strong, and they love harder than anyone else. They fight for their health and for their babies. So for Mother's Day, we're going to chat with some incredible Black mothers about their journey through motherhood and maternity health. Meet Tarani. While COVID-19 added many challenges to her pregnancy, she also developed gestational diabetes and had a medical procedure she did not desire. So can you start by telling me how many kids you have and their ages?
I have 3 beautiful children,
Okay.
16, 9, and 3.
And 3, so you just had one 3 years ago.
Yes.
Pandemic baby.
Midst of the pandemic, yes.
How was that?
That was very different from all of the other pregnancies.
Yeah.
Mainly because I had to go to every doctor's appointment alone.
Oh.
And, just the mask thing, the everything.
Yeah.
It was very interesting. I will say I wasn't one of those worried mothers that were like, oh my God, everything, I'm going to catch everything. I wasn't worried about any of that.
Okay.
I was more so just really tripped out because I had to be alone for everything.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, I don't get to share these moments with my child's father, even though he had been there for the other ones. But, it's like still, he's missing out on this one.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was really interesting.
So your first baby, what was that experience like? Were you prepared? Were you ready? Were you like, oh, I want to have a kid. Let's have this kid.
I could say I wasn't prepared for any of them.
Okay.
I was very nervous for the first one.
Okay.
Of course, I was young. I was a lot younger. I was in my 20s. I was 25.
Okay.
And I was very nervous, just, for being young and inexperienced. I think that's where the anxiety came from. I was going through a pivotal change in my life. My father was ill at the time, and he was close to leaving this earthly plane, and so that was a lot of stress on me. But it was just really interesting because I was experiencing all of these things for the first time. So all of the pregnancy cravings and the mood swings and the this and the emotions and the hormones being everywhere.
Yeah.
But it was nice. I had an interesting OBGYN. He had been an OB for many, many years, probably 60 years by the time he was mine. And so he was kind of, straight cut, just says whatever he wants to say.
Oh, wow.
So there were times that were pretty,
so he wasn't like, he felt like done this many times.
Yeah. So there's nothing you could tell me. I'm going to tell you.
Okay.
Okay. So any concern I think I had with that first pregnancy, he was always like, you're fine. No, that's nothing. I will say though that he was very adamant that I had a C-section.
Okay.
He said, you have a very small pelvic frame. Your bones are really close together there, and it's going to be hard for you to push the baby out. The baby might get stuck.
Huh? He just knew it was going to be hard.
He knew. He was just like, the baby's going to get stuck and this and that. You should have a C-section.
Okay.
Well, at the time, me being who I was like, yeah, no, I don't want to get cut open. So I'm going to have her naturally. So when I went into labor, and this is hilarious because he delivered my daughter, I went into labor and, I called the office and he got on the phone and I said, I think I'm in labor. This is what's going on. He said, yeah, you're in labor, get to the hospital. Okay. I said, okay, I'll get there. And he said, we can get you already set up for the C-section. I said, no, I'm just going to get there.
No C-section.
I'm just going to get there. We're just going to see what happens.
Exactly.
And I did have her naturally.
Okay.
It was probably the worst experience ever in my life because I ripped all the way from front to back. And he teased me about it, and he says, I told you, it was going to be really hard. But he said, I'm really proud of you because I didn't think you were going to be able to do it. Okay. But I did rip all the way, and I had to have stitches all the way up and down. And so just the recovery from that was pretty intense.
When you brought the baby home, What was that experience like?
Oh my goodness. I was so just anxious and worried that, like, you know, I'm going to drop her, or, you know, what if she rolls off the couch, or what if this happens? What if that happens? So I kind of like watched her like a hawk, even though, it was suggested, oh, you don't sleep with your baby. My babies slept next to me. All of my babies slept next to me. I don't think any of them slept in their bed ever.
That's okay.
I can't even lie.
Yeah, they're your babies.
People are like, oh, you know, you shouldn't co-sleep with your babies, and you hear all these stories about bad things happening.
Yeah.
But my thing was, I'm afraid if you're too far and something is going on, then I can't, you know,
can reach you
immediately, and I can't see immediately. So, you know, a lot of lack of sleep because I was probably up all night watching her, you know, the first one for all night, making sure she was breathing every 10 seconds.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it was just such an amazing time to, you know, just to be alive and to just see this little person that I made and have the experiences that we had together and just growing with her, because I still was like, I was very immature.
I mean,
I was only 25. I was still trying to figure out life. And, you know, it wasn't something that I had planned. So, having her definitely helped me grow a lot.
And then 8 years later.
8 years later. And then I had a son.
Okay.
Yeah. 8 years later, I was working a lot. So the pregnancy was definitely a surprise.
Okay.
And, you know, initially I thought like, all right, well, I don't know if I wanted to do this again, but I'm going to do this again. I'm excited. And I got really excited after, you know, really finding out, okay, it's real. It's real. You get to do a pregnancy test. You're like, oh, this is positive. Huh.
Were you planning on having a natural birth still?
I was
by
still
3 weeks. Okay.
But here's the thing. I decided this time I'm going to have an epidural because the pain level was so intense last time. Like, I don't want to experience
so natural birth,
again.
But we're going to add epidural.
But we're going to add epidural this time.
Okay.
And I was really apprehensive though about the epidural for some time, just because I was afraid of getting poked in my back with a needle. And I was like, oh, you know, you hear all these horror stories about people who, you know, had bad experiences. So I was really scared, but, you know, they assured me, oh, you know, our anesthesiologists, they've been doing this forever. They're all very professional. Don't worry about it. When I was in labor with him, I got to the hospital and I had him. I was with Kaiser at the time. So Kaiser, they have midwives that deliver all of their children rather than the OBGYNs. So I did have a midwife. It was just interesting because it was someone who I had not had any contact with before. Okay. And so her kind of delivering my baby. Oh, well, okay. It is what it is. But they did give me an epidural, and the anesthesiologist gave me too much of the epidural. And when I say it was too much, it was way too much because I couldn't feel my legs. I couldn't feel my bottom half at all. And I couldn't really feel if I was pushing or not. And so it took a while to really kind of figure out how to push and focus on pushing rather than focusing on why I can't feel my legs.
Yeah.
He came out, birth was a success. Everything was perfect. But I just couldn't feel my legs for hours after that.
That's not good.
It's not good. They're like, oh, don't worry, you'll be fine.
They kept saying, don't worry, you'll be fine after you could not feel your legs.
I couldn't feel my legs.
That is insane. I would be very much worried.
Yeah. I wasn't happy. My husband was like, oh, you know, you'll be fine. Yeah. Great. Every time.
Husband too?
Yeah, every time. Listen, the first time I had to put him out. When I was pregnant with the first one, I had to put him out of the labor delivery room because he was like, you're all right. Stop. It doesn't hurt that bad or something. I don't know what he said. And at that point, I was like, yeah, you got to go.
You got to go.
Because there's no way you can tell me that and you don't know what I'm feeling right now.
Exactly. I'm having your kid.
I was like, when she starts coming, then they can let you back in. But until then, I
you
don't want to
see
you
out. That's hilarious.
I don't want to see you at all. So yeah, once I recovered from the numbness of my legs and, you know, I was able to really get up and move. I was like, all right, I'm okay. You know, this is okay. And they let me go home the next day. Boom, bam, thing, all was well. So having him was another just amazing moment just because, you know, now you have a boy and it's so different. And, you know, the boys, they just look just like their moms for some reason. Like the girls come out, they're cute, you know, but they look like their dads. But the boys come out looking like moms. So I was like, okay, I have one. One looks like me now.
My gene did something.
My gene did something. Yes.
That's cute.
So yeah, he's such a sweet kid. 9 years old now, and he's a very, very emotional young man. Very sweet though.
Aww.
And you know, what can I say? He's a bundle of joy, but also a little monster. But let me tell you, this last one, ooh, she the biggest monster of them all.
Is she the biggest monster?
Now, had I had her first, and she has if she had the personality that she has right now, if she was the first child, I would have never had another one. Promise you. She's my little pandemic baby, like I like to call her. The pregnancy was very rough.
Okay.
I guess maybe being that I was an older woman at 39, pregnant with her, I was getting called all kind of geriatric pregnancy patients. And
they like to do that. Like as soon as you hit 30, you become a geriatric pregnancy patient. Like, are you okay? They need to stop.
You don't got to use that terminology, man. Y'all got another geriatric patient, please.
They need to stop. Why do they do that?
Girl, it took me all the way out. I was like, I'm geriatric. You just don't think of that. You think geriatric is a senior citizen.
You think like
you don't think
70.
Right. I'm like, oh no. So being that it was the pandemic again, I said I had to go all of my appointments alone, but I had gestational diabetes with her.
Okay. Did you know before you got pregnant?
No. It's something that came on
along with the pregnancy. See, pregnancy be doing a lot.
Pregnancy be doing a lot to your body.
Like you doing too much.
Okay, now, so that's where it started. Okay, I should have known she was going to be a monster from that moment on. Because I had to go to the doctor every week at that point once they found out I had the diabetes, and I had to take insulin every night. I had to go to the doctor and get an ultrasound every week. So it was rough because
what was the reason for that? Like, I don't know anything about.
Okay, so they said they have to monitor how she's growing. People with gestational diabetes, their babies tend to grow too fast.
Okay, and
then you know they have to like induce labor earlier on so that the baby doesn't get too big inside.
And before being diagnosed with the diabetes, you were going to the doctor how often? During your pregnancy?
The regular once a month, I think it was.
Okay, so now it's like every
3-4 weeks. Yeah, so now it's every week.
Okay.
So that was a lot. You know, just it was draining to have to go and get some ultrasound, this every week. So that took a lot out of me. I had to have her induced a week early, just because they had it planned out. They never really said she's growing too fast. But they just said, because you have gestational diabetes, you can't go full term, which was only a week.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, why can't I just let it happen naturally?
Yeah.
So, I was thinking if, she was due on the 31st of October and I had her a week prior to that, on the 24th, but had I went that week and she didn't come out on the 31st, maybe then you could have induced me.
Right.
But I felt just, this is medical advice. You kind of got to listen to what they're saying. And then having the gestational diabetes, I was just like, oh, maybe this is.
Did you feel like they were like scaring you?
I was scared. Yeah, definitely. There was, they had me thinking like, oh, your baby might get too big and they grow so fast. But I will say that every nurse and every doctor was very surprised at how well I maintained it during the pregnancy. Like my levels of sugars were never like crazy. And the only spike was like when I was asleep, and they were just like, you just can't do anything about that. That'll be fine. And thankfully it went away after I had her. I had made the decision at the time, okay, I want to get my tubes tied. I don't want to do this again.
You were actually done.
Yes.
You didn't even wait. You didn't wait to see how she would behave.
No, I didn't. I had made the decision while pregnant still. I'm like, yeah, I think.
So either way, she was gonna be your last baby.
She was gonna be the last one for sure. And
that's funny.
When I mentioned that, I told my doctor, well, so I had to see like a panel of doctors. I didn't have just one OBGYN on this last child. I was with a different health insurance. So I had a different health place that I went to, doctors I was at John Muir in Walnut Creek.
Okay.
And so they have like a group of OBGs that work together. So they see each patient, like all of them will see you, not just, you're not just assigned to one OBG. So having that was just kind of tiring as well, because, you got to say the new stuff, the same
to
stuff
a whole bunch
to
of
the
people,
new person over and over, and you're just like, okay, well, can't you just read the chart?
Honestly,
can't you just look at what I said
do a voice recording the first time and then you listen to it as your homework, and then we come and
we meet up, and then
exactly.
If there's anything else you want to know, then you ask me those questions, but you're just asking me the same thing.
Exactly.
So I did make the decision to have my tubes tied. And at the time, though, the doctor said, oh, yeah, that's fine. We'll just sign this paper that'll say, we're going to tie your tubes once you have the baby, which I did. And that was weeks before I had her. So when I did have her, and I did, I signed papers, and, the doctor who delivered her, who wasn't the doctor who had me sign the papers, when I decided to get my tubes tied, he's like, you sure you want your tubes tied? You should just get them removed because you have a higher rate of cancer if you just have them tied. I was like, what? And so in that moment of just having given birth and all of that, I'm just like, yeah, whatever, Did
the doctor who had you signed off on getting your tubes tied tell you that also?
No.
Okay.
He did not tell me that.
Okay.
Yeah. He was just like, yeah, you want your tubes tied? Okay, here, sign this paper.
Okay. That's interesting. Yeah. But then this other doctor he's the one who's supposed to do the
one that delivered my daughter.
Okay, the one that delivered your daughter comes.
Yeah, and he's like,
and out of nowhere he tells you,
because I listen, I'm like, okay, I had her. You guys gonna tie my tubes now? And he's like, we could. Are you sure you want to do the tube tied? Because if you do the tube tied, there's a higher risk of cancer and all this. And it's like, oh, what?
It's interesting.
So I was just a little nervous, and now I'm like, you threw cancer out there. What do you mean?
Right. Did he give you time to think about that?
He gave me a week.
A week,
yeah. Because he's like, oh, we got to hurry up and get this done. If you want to hurry up and do it, whatever. And so, okay. And I had a week, and I honestly, I didn't think about it much in that week because I was just,
because you just had a new baby.
Focusing on the baby and just really just trying to make sure that I was okay, because I was still kind of worried that the gestational diabetes or the diabetes would come back. And even though they tested my levels, they tested her levels and all of that once she was born, everything was normal. It was still something that was on my mind, just because they say it's normal, anything can happen. But I went in a week later and they removed my tubes, and I just felt like. And I asked before he put me under, I said, is this going to affect my hormones in any way or, any of that? Because, he's like, oh, no, it's not. You're fine. But now I find out it's like a partial hysterectomy. That's crazy. I didn't want a hysterectomy. I didn't want any parts of that. But yeah, that's what it is. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
What do you wish had been done differently within that situation? Do you wish your doctor would have told you sooner that would be an option for you to think about it longer? Or what do you wish?
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah. Just giving me that information sooner, and just saying, the risks of cancer and maybe just giving me my own opportunity to do research on how high is that risk, and, how does it affect Black women, but I just, I think, having that information sooner would have been great. And then also, I think just him tying my tubes after I had the baby would have been fine. Just
honestly,
tie the tubes.
Honestly,
you're here. You're right now. You just do that real quick.
Yeah. Just do what I asked, and then I don't know if there's a process where we can tie my tubes, then we can talk about the rest of it later.
Right. We're gonna remove later. Yeah. Because even though I felt like, hey, I'm done, I'm not gonna have any kids, it's so final now. I can't change my mind and say, oh, I just want maybe let's have that reverse. Let's do one more. No, it's over. You know what I mean? Unless I want to get an embryo surgically implanted in me now. So I felt, that's probably my only regret from that. But this little one is such a monster that it just reaffirms. I don't need it anymore. I don't need it before. Okay. She is a terrorizer. I mean, my house is in shambles.
I feel like that's a pandemic baby trait, though. These pandemic babies.
It might be.
No, like these pandemic babies are different.
Listen,
they are different. She's got a mind of her own. Of course.
She
COVID had a mind of its own.
Tells you what she wants to do, not what I want her to do. It's what she wants to do. She's like a Sour Patch Kid. She's so crazy and mean, and then she's sweet. And then you're like,
how did that change so quick?
How did this? And she has rage problems, and she's just like raging all through the house and screaming at everybody. And then she's just like, pick me up, I want a hug. You just raged out on me. So, oh man, yeah. She's so sweet though.
Growing up, did you always like think you would be a mother? Did you want to be a mother?
No.
You didn't want to be a mommy?
I'm not going to say I didn't want to be a mom. I'm going to say that I was traumatized as a child. And although my mother was great and she had such a beautiful heart, she has so many problems. She just couldn't get it together. Mm-hmm. She did give us a lot of great memories, though, as children, moments in time where she was there, she was present, and she took us and did things with us that gave us everlasting memories. Yeah. So definitely appreciate that. But I was just traumatized because I didn't want to be a mother like the parents that I had. I thought like, and also the parents that were surrounding me, because my parents hung out with other parents that were just like them. So they had drug problems and they had this. I'm just like, oh my God, like these are parents. Mm-hmm. These are parents. It wasn't until I moved in with my grandmother. Let me say this: my father is not Black. Okay. So when I moved in with his parents, my father's Armenian. Okay. When I moved in with his parents, and they lived in a, of course, white neighborhood. Mm-hmm. And I went to, of course, a white school. Mm-hmm. And being one of the only other, and I met a girl in second grade. This was in second grade. I met a girl, only other Black girl at the school. We are still best friends to this day. This is 35 years later. We're still together. Okay. we clicked though. We're like, okay. It's us. It's just us. So we got to keep on going, child. It wasn't until I started meeting the parents of the kids I went to school with then that I saw a different side. Okay. And wow, I was blown away. Like my friend Dana's mom, when I say her mom was my idol growing up, I couldn't imagine like being like any other Black woman except this woman, because she had her shit together. Like she had everything together. Big, beautiful house, big pool, and she drove all the fancy cars, and she was amazing. I was just like, this is a real Black woman doing all of these things. I had never seen that like before second grade. I was like, oh my God. So her mom was a big like, wow.
Okay, she gave you a different lens.
She gave me a different lens, a different perspective. Like, wow, you could really, but still, no, because I was just like, no.
Until you got pregnant with your first child.
Exactly.
What would you tell a prospective mother or someone who is thinking about motherhood would like to be a mom one day?
Motherhood is a beautiful thing. Like, I wouldn't trade it now for the world. There's nothing that you can give me to change this. You can, no amount of money, anything. I would say trust your body. Just listen to, your inner self, that inner God in you, because I know God is in us all. Believe that. Believe who you are, believe in that, and just know like you're capable. Like we get so frightened, and so with all of this information they give us, and it's information overload. You're just like, how do you process all of this? What do I know? How do I know what pertains to me and what's going to work for me? Yeah. And you don't, right? And we tend to put all of our, I don't want to say eggs in a basket, but we tend to put all of our trust in these doctors, believing that they are going to tell us what is best for us. But really, I think we know what's best for us. And we gotta, take the time to really listen to our bodies, and don't be afraid, and just embrace it. Embrace motherhood, and embrace the mistakes you are going to make. Because baby, it's not perfect. It's not.
Nope, not at all.
Not at all. There's so many things I wish I could have done a little differently. But here we are, and you learn and you grow and you keep on going.
You accept it and
you
do your best.
And you do your best, Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
This was
Thank
great.
you so
I
much.
appreciate you. I appreciate you so much
Thank
for
you.
sharing
This
your
was
story.
great. Yes.